Rahim and Assalamu alaikum. A very good morning to all our respected participants from all the regions, Lahore, Karachi, Islamabad, and Peshawar. Today we have come up with another very informative and relevant expertise webinar that's on climate change and geohazards. And by our distinguished speaker, Mr. Sohail Kibria, and a person who we had known him for the past 40 years of research and practicing, and one of the eminent geotechnical engineer we have in NESPAC. So we are truly grateful to have you. And regarding his achievements and regarding his successful credentials, he had been a part of the various trainings and the host of the seminars, workshops, conferences in Pakistan, Malaysia, South Korea, Nepal, UK, France, UAE, Oman, and the list goes on as a part of the continuing professional development CPD. And other than that, he has carried out professional works in Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, Oman, UAE, Qatar, UK, France, China, Ethiopia. And apart from this, he had also been associated with the preparation of the proposals, tender documents, technical reports, engineering analysis, design, and the longhand techniques for over 2,000 projects. And other than this, he had been extensively been a part of extensive lecturing at various fora like UET Lahore, Government Engineering Academy, Wabda Technical Training Institute, GTZ Technical Training Program, and the list goes on. So we are truly, it's an honor whenever we ask you for your valuable time, you're always here. And now I request you to please proceed with the session and share your precious information and the knowledge with our people. Thank you, sir.
Thank you a lot for such nice words and nice introduction. So, because before I start formally, I'm getting messages from some people who are the potential participants who want to enter and to listen to me. Kindly ask the host to allow all those who want to participate and attend. You see, there may be people outside NESPAC too, because I've shared it, you see, to some universities too, right? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So we formally start today's very interesting topic, which is less talked about, specifically amongst our technical circles of engineers, architects, planners, which are in excessive number in NESPAC. I must tell you, climate change is not a myth. It is a reality. Climate change is a reality. We need to understand what this thing is, how it's going to affect us, how it is going to impact the technical people and our projects and our activities, how and in what manner we are going to be affected and how we are going to control it, right? Just have a look. I'll be, just a minute, I'll be concentrating more or less in this order, but broadly the contents would be, I will be explaining what this climate change story is about. What is this phenomenon? What are the factors and what are the primary background elements which constitute this climate change theory? There are some natural causes and some man-made causes that we call anthropogenic causes of climate change. And what are the geohazards? You see, there are three kinds of spheres in this world on the planet Earth. One is called atmosphere, the one which is composed of air. The other is called hydrosphere, the one which comprises water. And geohazard is something which relates to the Earth, the geosphere, atmosphere, hydrosphere, and geosphere. So such hazards, or you see, such situations which can result into excessive loss or accidents, they are the geohazards. And in addition to the geohazards created by climate change, there are other elements too, which are responsible for creating certain geohazards in addition to the climate change factors. How do we mitigate them? Mitigation would mean how do we reduce or control these climate change factors? Then, once we do it to some extent, the side-by-side activity would be to adaptation to climate change. So this comes under the topic of creating resilience. That mitigation is the mitigation of the factors of climate change, whereas resilience is, you see, taking such steps, you see, with which we have some kind of adaptation, you see, to climate change. And not only in the world, but in our country too. You see, there are initiatives and there's a special ministry I'll be talking about. To start with, as I said in the beginning, it is a sad reality. This is a topic of high importance. How to understand it, what are the factors behind, how to mitigate the effect, how to have the resilience built. But our engineers, our architects, town planners, and other professionals and decision makers have little insight. I think that some people in NESPAC may be having better awareness, others will not be that informed. So today's session is about informing you people. And please, during the course of my deliberation, feel free to raise questions to the host. I always encourage so. Uh, is technology bad? This is a question to you, you see. Had it been a live session, I find it more easy to put some queries or questions to people to make it more interactive and lively. But you see, these live sessions through Zoom, you see, they have their own limitations. A big message to you is that we have to have technology. You see, we cannot do away with the technology. You see, even this Zoom lecture that I'm delivering today, or so many other host of other benefits that we are having today, which ease our life, which give comforts to us, are technology based. So technology is the necessity for human beings, for the race of mankind. Uh, it is said by someone, technology owes an apology to ecology, that it causes some tends to cause some disturbance to the ecosystem. Our purpose is to understand that what are those disturbances and to minimize the effect of those disturbances so that the natural ecology or ecological cycle is maintained as far as possible. So basically, technology, you see, will have some, intervention in the ecological system, which have to be, you see, mitigated, right? Climate change reality. First of all, I should tell you that climate change is not a new phenomenon. You see, it is not something that has come, you see, in the just a few years. Rather, it is the understanding of climate change, uh, basically, which has gone into us. From time immemorial, climate change has been taking place through various processes in the oceans, oceanic circulation, in the plants, the biotic processes. There have been variation in the solar radiation, you see, received by the Earth. There have been plate and tectonic effects. The theory that this planet Earth is founded on different plates which keep on drifting at a very slow pace, you see. And there have been volcanic eruptions. So these are the natural factors. So these are the natural factors which have been causing climate change, but superimposed are the human-induced factors too, you see, which change or intervene the natural system. This effect is currently causing global warming, the greenhouse effect. This is because of the man-made intervention. And this man-made intervention related effects are currently under debate and discussion and are called climate change. Quite often, climate change today is referred to only the factors which bring change in the ecological system and in the world because of the man intervention, right? Otherwise, there was a natural cycle itself going regarding climate change, right? So I'll be explaining to you various factors you see behind this story of climate change. Here in this graph, you see on the horizontal axis, on the vertical axis is the temperature. and only in degree centigrade. Here you see that temperature effects in terms of variation, uh, they have some consistency, you see, up to 1900 or so, and then there is some kind of trend of increase, and after 1960s there is an abrupt, further abrupt increase, the slope increases. So here are the plotted, the annual mean values of temperature. Although the values of temperature don't, you see, when the variation is taking place, they don't appear to be more than 1 or 1.5 degrees centigrade. But this means a lot. Given another 1 or 2 degrees centigrade increase, and that kind of global warming is going to play havoc. I will show you in one slide. There has been a study in UK that 1 or 2 or 3 degrees centigrade can alter the shape of this planet altogether and may affect the living beings too. So one is the global warming effect. You see, there was start of industrial revolution in the 19th century. So you can see here in this curve that the effects match with that when heat engines and other systems were evolved, and you see more heat sources were generated and there were emissions of carbon dioxide and heat sources, you see. So here in this graph you see three types of temperatures. uh, the one which are because of natural reasons in green, plotted on time scale. The others you see, which are because of the human drivers, plotted in red, and the observed temperature plotted in black. Here you see that if you look at the natural drivers, as I told you, the natural processes are there, slight up, slight down, slight erratic variation. So they have been there, you see. Uh, Slightly below zero or minus zero point 0.2, you see. The main effect is around that, you see, because of natural changes. But you see, for human intervention, there has been a slow increase. We see this graphic from 1880, a very mild increase in temperature from 1980 up to say 1960 or so. So that was the period of, you see, start of industrial revolution. And after 1960, there has been a tremendous increase, an upward surge, a tremendous increase on an increasing slope in the temperature. So this is a matter of concern now. This is a matter of concern that if we allow that because of our technological development, the temperatures to rise like that, it's going to have high values, which may have very detrimental effects. I'll show you how on our life, on our systems, on everything. So one was this temperature effect. Second effect that I want to emphasize is we often talk about the depletion of oxygen because oxygen is one important element in the atmosphere, which is important for human survival. So look at the composition of the atmosphere. The general composition of the atmosphere is that it has 21% of oxygen, 78% of nitrogen, and 1% of other gases, all other gases like uh, NO2, NO3, sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, etc. So this is the balance which nature has created. So the study has shown that in a matter of about 800,000 years, यानी 8 लाख साल में 0.8 million years में, the oxygen level is depleted only by 0.7%. So this is considered not to be a very serious decline for the life to remain on this planet Earth. So it is also said that if the oxygen is lost only for 5 seconds, it will have very serious repercussions, very serious effects in the life on this planet. So this is the degree of importance. So Allah has created these gases to make atmosphere in a very precise proportion, you see, which for our life, for the continuity of our life. So one was the temperature, second was the depletion of oxygen. So message is that it's not depleting at that critical rate, right? Third is the accumulation of gases, particularly carbon dioxide, their emissions. You see, just a minute. There's a window. I need to keep it away. Well, just a minute. No, it's not working. Okay. So here you see again there is a pink curve on the graph on which show time scale on one side and atmospheric carbon dioxide in parts per million or carbon dioxide emissions in billions of tons, right? So if you follow the pink curve, you can see that certain level of carbon dioxide like 280 parts per million existed even in the year 1750. You can see a gradual increase. You see uh, after that, you see very gradual, and after start of industrial revolution, the slope remains mild till you reach the time period of 1950 or 1960. Then there is a very steep rise in the carbon dioxide emission. Then they exceed now. They are around 410 ppm. You see. So that is serious. It started from 282 to 410. And if you look at the carbon dioxide emissions, you see, which took place, you see, they were zero at year 1750, 0 billion ton, and they have reached something like 37 billion tons in the year 2020, right? So this is the status, and you can see that there has been a steep climb in the carbon dioxide emissions as well as in the presence of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere in parts per million. So carbon dioxide is one important gas which is responsible for greenhouse effect for giving global warming in addition to some other gases too. So this plot shows you see the abundance of carbon dioxide you see in ppm over time. The steeper portion starting here from 1975 is shown plotted here up to year 2020. So it is rising, rising, rising as the industries, the technological developments are taking place. So it needs to be bridled, to be put a stop on. Let me explain now, after these three initial basic definitions and phenomena, that what is the greenhouse effect. There are two figures on the slide. If you look at the figure on the left-hand side, where it is written greenhouse effect, you see the planet Earth and a cushion of air, the atmosphere around it. Okay, so here you see that sun rays which come and they are thrown on the planet Earth. Some are, you see, absorbed in the form of heat. Others are reflected, and those which are reflected back again. You see, a part of that is reflected back again from the atmosphere back towards the earth, and a little part goes off. The presence of carbon dioxide, water vapor, uh, hydrogen sulfide, uh, carbon monoxide, and some other gases which are present in abundance, you see, they give the reflective effect, you see, additional reflection, multiple reflection to the heat waves. As you see on the right hand side, carbon dioxide molecules are shown, the water vapor molecule, H2O, the CH4, methane is shown. So they cause multiple reflections, and heat which was reflected originally directly comes back. So what happens? This results into trapping of heat, and this is called kind of greenhouse effect, which results into global warming, which has caused the temperature to rise by up to 1.25 to 1.5 degrees centigrade till now because of the man-made intervention. This figure shows you that when I say atmosphere, basically atmosphere has been divided to be shown here in 5 parts. The one which is immediately above the Earth's surface in which we breathe is called troposphere, and the one which is an enveloping troposphere is a stratosphere. It's the presence of ozone layer, the presence of ozone, la- uh, the heavier part or type of oxygen in stratosphere, you see, which was found to be depleting because of the artificial intervention. Certain gaseous compounds like they call chlorofluorocarbons and hydrogen sulfide and methane and gases like that, they uh, had a tendency to undergo chemical reaction with ozone, resulting into depletion of ozone. And as you see in the figure, if there is sunlight, you see, that gets, you see, inhibition. And you see, because of the presence of ozone in the stratosphere, you can see red, orange, three arrows, you see, uh, which are not throwing light directly to the earth, but they are stopped and intervened by the ozone in stratosphere. But where there is depletion in ozone, there is a direct infusion of the sunlight getting gamma rays and other things which are injurious to health. So that is the bad effect of the reduction in the thickness of ozone. So anyway, troposphere is the first layer of atmosphere. Second is the stratosphere in which the ozone depletion has been found, and this is the layer generally in which our airplanes fly. Then around this is the mesosphere in which we have rockets, and then we have thermosphere in which we have the satellites generally up to that height, and exosphere outside that. You see, that forms your space. You see, in which the astronauts and you see the space rockets move, right? So I've told you about various important things, the greenhouse effect, the depletion of oxygen phenomenon, the addition of carbon dioxide, the global warming, and finally this ozone depletion. So here it is again apparent from this figure also that where ozone in the second layer, stratosphere where ozone is present, ozone layer shown in dark blue color is present, the sun rays don't come directly with gamma rays effect. And where it is punctured by reduction in the quantity of ozone, the sun rays directly travel towards Earth. So this is also because of the industrial emissions you see of certain type. Even in our perfumes, you see we have chlorofluorocarbon, you see in many kinds of aerosol sprays. So this is what technology is doing silently. Then I'll take you to two interesting phenomena before going into full-fledged impacts of the climate change on our planet Earth and on our works, on our projects, on our health. These two phenomena, one is called La Nina and the other is called El Nino, right? They are quite similar words. They are Spanish words. La Nina in Spanish language would mean a girl child, a small girl child. Somehow this name has been given to this phenomenon. What is this phenomenon? Pacific Ocean, which is to the, you can say to the west of American continents. So in that part, eastern part of Pacific, which is to the west of American continent, more than the usual cooler water exists. The temperatures are cooler, you see, during this phenomenon. And some currents of water, you see, they flow like that. So this phenomenon takes place. So in the, as a consequence, there is a cooler wind blowing from east to west in the Pacific and then on the continents, you see, in that region. This phenomenon happens every 2 to 7 years. This is what has been observed in last 1 to 3 years. This is hitherto also involved in bringing land enough phenomenon, or since its discovery was there, it's already factor, or maybe there are superimposed factors because of the human effects, the anthropogenic effects. So what happens is that here in this figure you see the continent of North America and South America, and to the west of these continents is the Pacific Ocean. The eastern side of Pacific Ocean becomes cooler, so current, you see, trade winds start blowing, carrying cooler currents towards the western side, as you can see, towards Australia, towards Asia, even the beginning of Asia. So this is how this takes place, and this also results into shift of the climatic weathers in American continent, North America. You can see dry, warm weather, and then a cool, wet weather. So there are regional climatic shifts you see because of this La Nina phenomenon. And when La Nina winter is there, it is harsher in certain parts and it is warmer in the other parts. It is drier at some parts and wetter in the other parts, more rainfall. So this phenomenon, which repeats after some time, may result in the droughts in certain areas of the earth, in certain regions, heavy rainfalls, more water accumulation, flooding kind of situations. So this is what this phenomenon is. Here in this figure, you see on the globe are plotted the wet and the dry regions of on the earth. You see having wet air, wet seasons, and dry conditions during La Nina period. You have some effect in the region where we are. You can see Pakistan to have some blue means wet effect you see on its eastern side and some dry effect on the western side of Pakistan. I can see. I think you can spot Pakistan, right? So La Nina, where there are rainfalls and more wet weather, so more water and more flooding. And I think we get some indications of these phenomena nowadays. Now, since the other phenomenon, which is called El Nino, is opposite to it, that is the direction of blow of wind is in the opposite direction. So the opposite of little girl is little boy in Spanish. So literally, it has been given this name. Opposite of La Nina is El Nino. It causes warmer water temperature in the eastern and central Pacific compared to La Nina, where there was cooler water temperature in this region. So the reverse current will flow, you see. They are observed to be flooding in Peru and drought in Indonesia and Australia, you see, because of the reverse effect, right? So like La Nina, this effect also has a frequency of occurrence, you see, of 2 to 7 years, and persistence is like 1 to 3 years. Here you see this El Nino phenomenon. Okay, uh, you have a warmer part, you see red part, you see because of this, you see you can see on the left side, not in the normal air, but in the El Nino air, you have on the right side, I mean on the eastern side of Pacific Ocean, you have warmer waters. So reverse flow of cooler air towards the warmer air, and you see that takes place. So this is briefly speaking two phenomenon. But don't think that this La Nina and El Nino are affecting only America or Australia. You see, the whole globe gets its effect. You see, the whole globe is impacted. So, see what happens in certain parts in El Nino droughts. Drought is a serious condition जिसको उर्दू में खुशहाली कहते हैं. Scarcity of rains. If there are less rains, many areas of the world that depend a lot in their agriculture on water, then what will happen in those areas, in those countries where there are droughts, where there are excessive dry periods, less crops, human miseries, you see, low per capita income, distressful conditions, low development budget. You see, they're all related. So that's why the world has recognized the impact of the climate change on the human beings and on the activities in the world. So there are so many pacts, so many agreements you see within the country and between different countries and different forums. There have been agreements to mitigate these effects. And in Pakistan, we have a federal ministry you see established of climate change. So it is because of that. At a provincial level, there are environmental ministries you see to take care of the environmental effect. But at the federal level, uh, ministry which is having a federal minister, Madam Zata Al Ghul, and there is a steering committee also in that, which is chaired by Prime Minister of Pakistan on climate change. Such is the importance of this factor in the coming years in the future. So, look here, the phenomena of La Nina and El Nino are considered to be an outcome of complex natural climatic factors. But we have to see that what is the impact of the anthropogenic climate change factors on changing La Nina and El Nino. That is the human-made interventions, the global warming, the carbon dioxide emissions, the ozone depletion. Do they have also pronounced effect on La Nina and El Nino? The research on this continues, and it needs further work to establish whether these factors are also affecting La Nina and El Nino or not. It is believed that El Nino and La Nina were continuing on this planet Earth from time immemorial, but in their own natural pattern. The study showed, you see, there's a published study that the last year's winter in Pakistan was harsher, you see, because La Nina phenomenon was found to be there, you see. It was said that three factors were combined. That it took place in the winter. The La Nina phenomenon happened in the winter, which is already a cold month. La Nina itself means production of many cooler regions and deep solar minimum. I mean, in the condition in which the solar radiation is reduced to a minimum, the processes, the explosions, the heat generation explosions which are taking place in the sun to keep it hot, they reduce to a minimum. This is the observation to the scientists, you see. So it was considered that that winter, you see, that had lower temperature and longer spell. So what have been the effects, you see? I'm just narrating you small, you see, on the basis of published literature. Longer winters, we had lower temperatures, record snowfall in north and south that we are having even now, even during this winter, we have not, because the La Nina and El Nino phenomenon, they last, you see, for 1 to 3 years. They may last for 1 to 3 years, and their recurrence is 2 to 7 years. So heavy rainfall and other effects, and combined with that, the urban flooding phenomenon, you see, of impervious landscapes, you see, that compounds the problem in countries like Pakistan. So I'm talking to the host. If the host is listening, is there some question so far? No question. So I keep moving ahead. Now let me give history of climate change study. that ये कैसे ये डेवलप कैसे हुआ इसकी क्रोनोलॉजी क्या है ठीक है जी so some observations of regional changes through the olden periods up to 19th centuries were observed just observed there was no I mean precise instrument to capture then in the second stage the paleoclimate change I mean the change in the climate which could be measured with instruments uh, that came into being during the 19th century, and some theories, it was tries to be understood, some concentration on this, that what is happening, why this is changing place. So some theories were evolved. Then at the third stage, it was understood that some trapment of gases and warming effects, perhaps they could be there because of the industrial revolution effect which has started pouring in. So first time some calculations were made. Some calculations were made of the greenhouse effect back in 1896. Then in the period from the start of the 20th century up to the mid of the 20th century, from 1900 up to 1950, The instrumented measure temperature and environmental effects, the paleoclimatic effects and sunspots, they were studied more deeply. So you see the development started taking place after the middle of the 20th century, right? Then after the outcomes of those came on paper, then some concerns were raised, you see, between 1950s and 1960s that something is happening. It could be serious. So we ought to consider it more. Then at the sixth level, scientists started predicting warming in a proper, fair and square manner. This relates back to 1970s, means about half a century back only. The prediction of global warming started coming in proper scientific word. इससे पहले को इतना पता नहीं था. सिर्फ 50 साल पहले की कहानी है. So, on the basis of those further study work, some consensus was formed between 1980 and 1988 that this should be done, some agreements, some policies. Then call it modern period from 1988 to present. Now we are sitting here 2022. And some other climate change factors like El Nino, La Nina, and other factors you see, solar minimum, deep solar minimum. तो इस तरह की चीजें जो हैं ये इनकी दरियाफ्तें होती गई और होती जा रही हैं. देयर आर सेवरल वेज इन विच इसको देखा और परखा जा रहा है. Because it is believed that if this is not controlled or mitigated, the extinction of life may take place, you see, by a further 2, 3, 4 degree rise. You see, the effect could be very, very serious on the planet Earth. So observations in 1950 indicate increases in some forms of extreme weather events. But I would say this is broadly qualitative so far. The recent special report issued by Extreme Events and Disasters called SRX by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, this predicts further increases in the 21st century in which we are living now, further increase in the climate change factors, what kind of things will take place which are expected, growing frequency of heat waves, बार बार होंगी जल्दी जल्दी थोड़े इंटरवल पे, rising wind speeds of tropical cyclones. You see, last week there was big windstorm or cyclones in Europe, which affected the countries like UK, Netherlands, and others in the belt. Winds were there of the speed of like 150 kilometers per hour for quite some time. There would be very cold spells and increasing intensity of droughts. So this is serious. We are not geared for these changes. As the population is increasing in the world, and we are executing our engineering projects in some balanced way, we could be facing this problem. The poor countries will be having a lot of effect where the budgets will come from to, to cater for these climate change factors. So this is a real concern for countries like Pakistan. The trend of climate change. Now look at that. Earlier, a 1 in 20 years hottest day event is now likely to occur every other year by the end of this century. ये तो बहुत सीरियस बात होगी. 20 साल बाद जो हॉटेस्ट डे का इवेंट था वो एक साल के बाद, एक साल छोड़ के दो दो साल बाद होगा, तो 10 टाइम्स. तो जिस तरह से चल रहा है, दिस इज प्रिडिक्टेड कि गर्मी का इवेंट 10 टाइम्स हो गया. एटमॉस्फेयर का गर्म होना कोई मामूली बात नहीं है, 2-3 डिग्री गर्म होना. You see, this results into enormous melting of ice, you see, on Antarctica, and release of increased quantity of waters. वो कहाँ से गुजरेंगे? लैंड से गुजरेंगे ना, फ्लडिंग होगी वहाँ, आबादी की लैंड के इरोजन होंगे, लैंडस्लाइड्स होंगे, मोर वाटर विल गो into sea. So there will be shifting of weights on this globe, you see, from its snow-covered peaks of mountains where weight will reduce, and weight will increase in the rivers and in the seas, in the reservoirs. So what is that? That will result in the shifting of weight. This is very serious. Shifting of huge weights of water can be linked to some different pattern of seismotectonics, different kind of seismology, उसका नया equilibrium में पैदा होने की तरफ जाना शुरू होगा. So we could expect seismologists and the climatologists to believe that because of this effect, we may have another pattern of earthquakes, you see, which may hit. और जब आपको पता है earthquake आता है, there's a lot of destruction. Countries like Pakistan, we are not able to recover even from the aftermath of the earthquake of October 8, 2005, जिसमें हमारे तकरीबन 90,000 lives चली गई. उसके बाद infrastructure works and developmental works, the works which add to the resilience and you see adaptation, how difficult they become. So our cities, our dwellings, they are not ready to cope with very heavy precipitations, you see. Simple वो लग रहा है कि loss of human lives, and when droughts are there, loss of agriculture. It is very serious. Landslide, you see, आपके sloping areas में landslide ज़्यादा आने शुरू हो जाए because of more rainfall. We are not geared for any of these. Where the money will come from? So it is necessary that the whole world community has started joining hand to combat the effect of climate change on the globe. इसमें एक या दो मुल्कों के ठीक करने से नहीं होगा. The whole world, all the countries have. That's why there are global treaties, you see, and that's why your prime minister is giving a lot of importance to plantation of additional trees, and you see, to control the effect of greenhouse, to have more carbon sinks, bagara bagara. Now let's talk of the anthropogenic drivers, which are said to be the real cause of this uh, artificial climate change. Otherwise, natural climate change was of less concern. वो तो हो ही रही थी. We are talking more and emphasizing more on the artificial climate change because of the man-made technological advances. Now look here, the largest human driver has been the emission of greenhouse gases. सबसे ज़्यादा ये मालूम किया गया, this is the maximum worst effect. And out of these greenhouse gases, more than 90% is constituted by carbon dioxide and methane. These two, ये सबसे ज़्यादा है. इसके अलावा भी हैं even water vapor, you see, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrous oxide, वगैरह वगैरह. Fossil fuel burning for energy consumption is the main source for this emission, with additional contribution from agriculture, deforestation, and industrial processes. What does agriculture और डिफोरेस्टेशन में होता है? एग्रीकल्चर में बहुत सारी चीजें हैं. एग्रीकल्चर की कमी होना, one thing. Second is using of certain aerosol sprays on agriculture. The removal of trees or green cover, reduction of that will result in the reduction in the carbon sink. And the industrial processes, you see, the air movement, traveling by air, you see, which is very much a cultural, you can say, element in the cultures of the advanced countries in Europe, in Canada, and America. So many air travel, like we travel here in buses or in rickshaws. Their public travels too much in air, on air through airplanes. So you know how serious are the releases you see which go into atmosphere. So temperature rise is accelerated or tempered by climate feedbacks. You see this tempered also. So one effect is loss of sunlight reflecting snow. Just concentrate on this. That is, if due to global warming, greenhouse effect, if the snow cover is that reduces in on the mountain, this means the area available for reflection of heat waves, which is thrown by sun, will reduce. This means more heat will be absorbed, right? So more melting as a chain reaction will take place. So this will further deplete the ice cover. So this will, you see, when more water is produced, more water vapor, which is also a greenhouse gas, will, when there is more water vapor, what does it do? In addition to acting like a greenhouse gas, it results into more rains, you see, more snowfall, because the water vapor which in the atmosphere, you see, forms bigger particles around a nucleus to result into raindrops or into ice flakes. So this changes the pattern of lands and ocean, you see, and the car which act as carbon sinks. तो गड़बड़ होगी ना बहुत ज्यादा. इस वास्ते I'm emphasizing again, I'm also an engineer. Till the time I had little comprehension, I had little fear and little focus. But now I'm focused more, you see, this is proper engineering, you see, that how do you control it? You see, हम जो सारा ये काम करते रहते हैं जनाब ये आपके नॉर्थ में ये लैंडस्लाइड आ गया, there's a lot of flooding here, ठीक है जी, फिर उसकी वजह से engineering projects generate होती हैं, retaining walls बनती हैं, drainage के ज़्यादा काम होती हैं, river training works बनते हैं. So this is all concerned to our engineering, ठीक है ना जी. As loyal people, loyal to our country, we must, as professionals, understand and contribute to mitigate and to educate other people and to have adaptive strategy. इसकी हमें समझ होनी चाहिए. अगर हम अच्छे इंजीनियर हैं तो ग्लोबल फोरम पे हम तभी बात करने के काबिल हैं और अपनी कंट्रीब्यूशन देने के काबिल हैं when we understand these things properly. So now let's have some flow diagram. I've drawn specifically for this lecture. These are not, you see, a part of any literature or book. These have been developed by me in particular. क्योंकि हम इंजीनियर जो है फ्लो डायग्राम के बगैर जरा कम ही समझते हैं, इससे आसान समझ आ जाता है. तो see, let's talk of emission of greenhouse gases which have been concentrating upon, right? Carbon dioxide and methane and water vapor and other gases. So two big effects. One is the ozone depletion, other is the global warming, right? Ozone depletion जो है उससे क्या होगा? Direct effect diseases के ऊपर आएगा, cancers and other skin problems and other. Global warming का दूसरा इफेक्ट है, ठीक है कि emission of greenhouse gases से उससे या तो ग्लेशियर मेल्टिंग होएगी साथ और दूसरा साथ हार्श एंड चेंज विंटर्स भी हो सकती है, ठीक है. Harsh and change weather conditions, which may result in the heavy rainfall or snowfall or drops. That's all combined. And when there is global warming resulting in ice melting means more water in the rivers to flow. So more rise, अगर हम समुद्र की तरफ चल जाए, more rise in the sea level and in the localities that in habitations near sea, erosion, landsliding and water intrusion. You see, समुद्र के पास की आबादी में पानी आ जाएगा, फिर आप उसको रोकने के लिए सी वॉल बनाएंगे सिविल इंजीनियर्स के तौर पे, यू सी, या कुछ और करेंगे आप लैंडस्लाइड को रोकने के लिए, ठीक है ना जी, बड़े बड़े हैवी चीजें इस्तेमाल करेंगे तो बहुत ज्यादा इकोनॉमिक इम्पैक्ट हैं, बिलियंस एंड बिलियंस एंड बिलियंस ऑफ डॉलर. So if the river gets flooded, of course, erosion and landslides, which again we cannot, you see, afford beyond a certain capacity. And this La Nina and El Nino, if they have human intervention, we have to check that also because both of these phenomena may result into extreme weather conditions in a specific distribution of regions over the globe, where certain areas will have excessive rainfall, other snowfall, other will be hotter, more cooler, with more floods or more droughts. I've shown you this thing, right? It's a complex phenomenon and needs to be understood. Now let's talk of three terms which have been used interchangeably, but they are not interchangeable. वो हम गलत इस्तेमाल उसका कर जाते हैं. ये as engineers now we should know this. ठीक है ना जी, engineers और architects हमें पता होना चाहिए. What is hazard, what is risk, and what is vulnerability. इसका mathematical relationship भी define कर देंगे. Hazard is something that can cause some harm, right? It is any source of potential damage or harm. Risk is the chance, the probability of happening, of inflicting that harm, high or low, more or less, that any hazard will actually cause. Okay? कितना परसेंट probability है उस hazard के होने की. और vulnerability is the extent of damage. कितना ज्यादा नुकसान होगा उतनी probability. 80% probability के जब आ जाएगा, how much damage it is going to result into is a vulnerability of caused by a certain hazard having certain risk. तो इसको एक और टर्म है exposure, फिर इसको कहते हैं exposure time. उसकी जो persistence है, वो continuity कितनी लंबी होगी, right? तो मैथमेटिकली इसको रिस्क को डिफाइन किया गया है that you define with the weightage factor assigned to it, hazard multiplied by the weightage factor assigned to the vulnerability and the factor assigned to exposure. This is how it is described, risk factor. अब आप देखें कि ये वैसे लगता है कि बहुत मिलती जुलती चीजें, इट्स नॉट लाइक दैट कि रिस्क बढ़ गया जी, वल्नरेबिलिटी बढ़ गई, हैजर्ड बढ़ गया. सो precisely they are different. Okay, ये हमारे not only in the climate change business but in the other businesses, you see the damages brought about by natural system of earthquakes, of floods, of what we call the cyclone, hurricanes, tsunamis. तो ये terms तो सबके लिए common है ना. अब ये देखें, hazards are different kinds of, you see, this phenomenon. You can see landslides here. You can see cyclone and flood effects and earthquake. These figures show some uh, eruptions, you see, of gases from volcanoes, or you see some fire, you see jungle fire, जिसको कहते हैं, something like that. तो रिस्क एंड हैजर्ड का यहाँ अब आप देख लें, जैसे हमने अभी पहले बात की है, हैजर्ड इज समथिंग दैट हैज द पोटेंशियल टू हार्म यू. जैसे बंदा खड़ा दिखाया गया है एंड ही इज इन वाटर, तो ठीक है. दूसरे में रिस्क दिखाया गया है, फिशेस मे ईट हिम अप, हाउ मच risk is there of causing that harm, you see, in water, that he may be eaten up. This is just an example. Yeah, इस तरह. So, Andy, any question, Mr. Host or Miss Host? Is there some question? ताकि मैं उसका जवाब दूं, या कोई question नहीं है? Nothing. Is the host of NESPAC trainings present there? Hello, from NESPAC trainings or
Yes,
host?
sir. Yes, sir. The host is there. I have already requested the participants, if they find any queries, please let us
Yeah.
know.
Please. I think in the chat box you need to just check there too.
Sir, as yet, we have not received any kind of question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine. Thank you. So अजीब बात है, लोगों की दिलचस्पी इसमें है कि नहीं. Some of the participants may like to tell me, are you finding this talk interesting or are you finding it boring? मुझे बताए आप में से कोई नहीं, तो मैं नाम लेके पूछता, मैं नाम देख रहा हूँ लोगों का. अच्छा ठहरे, मैं पूछता हूँ खुद. हाँ जी, I can see Zarak Khan Sahab also. Zarak Khan Sahab, you are from FF Steel, our friend. Am I right? Zarak Sahab, are you there? No, I think he's not there. His name is there, but he himself is not there. Now let me ask Ahsan Rafiq Khokhar. Mr. Ahsan Rafiq Khokhar, are you there?
Sir, I think Rizwan Khan sir wants to share something. Let me ask to unmute him.
Mr. Rizwan Khan, please speak out. Yeah. Bole janab, bole.
Assalamualaikum. I have a question.
Walaikum assalam. Can I see your face too? It's always pleasant to reply after looking at face. You see, we are human beings.
Actually, sir, video is not available.
No problem. Please go on.
I have a question that which software can be used for risk mitigation, especially in case of Diamond Basha Dam in Pakistan? Like,
well, मैं उसके मुतालिक तो आपको नहीं बता सकता. रिस्क मिटिगेशन के बहुत सारे सॉफ्टवेयर्स हैं, इस पे आपको अलबत्ता इंफॉर्मेशन लेके दी जा सकती है, क्योंकि ये एक अलग फील्ड बन जाता है कि भाषा दियामी डैम पे रिस्क मिटिगेशन के लिए. आर यू वर्किंग देयर ऑन दिस डैम?
yes, sir. I have
Okay.
research on this dam.
ओके, तो व्हाट इज द आउटकम ऑफ योर रिसर्च? कोई सॉफ्टवेयर आप लोगों ने सर्च नहीं किया? आपके पास वहाँ बड़े एक्सपर्टियट्स भी आते हैं.
Basically, sir, स्लोप स्टेबिलिटी एनालिसिस हो रहा है, लेकिन स्लोप स्टेबिलिटी एनालिसिस के बाद रिस्क मिटिगेशन की तरफ जाएंगे, तो इस बारे में क्वेश्चन करना चाह रहा था कि इसमें कौन सा सॉफ्टवेयर यूज करें.
ओके, मैं आपको ये बताऊं, सॉफ्टवेयर इज गुड. सॉफ्टवेयर के बगैर भी, सॉफ्टवेयर तो आप आए हैं, उसके बगैर भी आप इसकी weightages factors assign करके, so you can do it, you see, even without any specific software. I've been doing this for some landslide works, you see, in Murray area. उसका भी हो सकता है, लेकिन सॉफ्टवेयर से I think you can have more trials and more parameters can be taken into account. चलें, और anybody else? बस,
Thank you, sir.
thank you, welcome. And now let's talk of the role of the cities, you see, in this climate business and disaster business. ये देखें कि according to the statistics, very interesting that only 2% of cities occupy only 2% of the total land है. इसका मतलब है 98% जो land है उसमें cities नहीं है. अच्छा, अब जो cities हैं इनके कारनामे देखें. Look at the big deed of these cities. They support 70% of economy, means सारा बड़ा काम, activities, business and your industries and everything. They consume more than 60% of global energy. This 2% of land पे ये काम हो रहा है, ठीक है? And they are responsible for generation of up to 70% of greenhouse gases. क्योंकि जहाँ काम हो रहा है तो वहीं से होना है. 98% एरिया जो है वो उसके लिए रिस्पॉन्सिबल नहीं है. एंड ग्लोबल वेस्ट भी 70% इंक्लूड ये सिटीज, ये 2% लैंड पे काम हो रहे हैं, ये कंज्यूम करते हैं. सो दिस इज समथिंग दिस इज आल्सो एन आई ओपनिंग काइंड ऑफ स्टैटिस्टिक्स. अच्छा जी, अब देखिए क्लाइमेट फोर्सिंग जियोलॉजिकल हैजर्ड्स. अच्छा, क्लाइमेट्स कौन से जियोलॉजिकल हैजर्ड्स को जो है वो बनाती है, ठीक है, तो इसको पैदा करती है. It provides a valuable new insight into how climate change is able to influence, modulate, and trigger geological and geomorphological phenomena. Geological phenomena are related to geology, and geomorphological phenomena are those which are related to the processes of formation of natural processes which take place on this earth. They are the geomorphology, such as earthquakes, tsunamis, floods, volcanic eruption, and landslides. So ultimately, they increase the risk of natural hazards in a warmer world. ठीक है ना, ये सारे के सारे मिलके जो रिस्क है नेचुरल हैजर्ड्स का, जो कि ज्यादातर हमें ज्यादा उससे है जो जियो हैजर्ड्स है. Now just have a look again in this diagrams, flow diagram. ये भी मैंने ही डेवलप की है आपकी बेहतर अंडरस्टैंडिंग के लिए. फ्लड्स एंड इरोजन्स, ये जरा देखें किस तरह लिंक है ये क्लाइमेट चेंज के साथ. That the phenomenon of deforestation and air pollution and heat generation and burning of fossil fuels and the change of land use pattern, ठीक है ना, change of land use pattern से मुराद है कि यहाँ आबादी नहीं थी वहाँ आबादी होगी, जहाँ vegetation थी वहाँ से वो काट लिया गया. You see, where water body was not there, वहाँ water body हो. So these all phenomenon cumulatively result somehow into rise in the temperature. When rise of temperature is there, two situations: more water vapors and more glacial melting. When more water vapors are there, उस चीज को आप देखें, heavy rainfall and could be heavy snowfall and again floods. When there is glacial melting, more river flow, more water inflow, so that will cause more floods in the rivers and of course erosions and the could be landslides also in some cases, and in sea, rise in the sea level and flooding and erosion of the areas which are abutting to the sea. Here, I would like to discriminate the recent urban flooding, which has been quite, observed in Karachi, in Lahore, and in Islamabad too, you see, is mostly the outcome of poor drainage systems in these mega cities due to anthropogenic reasons. हमने ड्रेनेज सिस्टम या तो प्रोवाइड नहीं किया, जो नेचुरल था उसको ब्लॉक कर दिया. यू सी व्हाट हैपेंस बाय द डेवलपमेंट ऑफ सिटीज. इन शहरों में जो ज्यादा फ्लड आए हैं, अगर Well, imagine for a minute that the abadi was not there, inhabitation was not there. तो एक phenomena है इसको urban landscaping को कहते हैं impervious landscaping. आपकी रोड ज्यादा पड़ेगी तो relatively impervious surface होगी. अगरचे there have been experiments in some countries to make pervious roads too now, लेकिन हमारी सड़कें तो impervious है ना. उसके साथ साथ आप फुटपाथ भी impervious बना दें. Buildings themselves they are impervious things. तो होता ही है जो रन ऑफ जनरेट होगा जो बारिश इन पे पड़ेगी और जो rainfall से run generate होगा that is going to result into you see excessive water. उसका डिस्पोजल कहाँ से करें नहीं रखा हुआ अगर रखा भी हुआ तो चौक जाए तो कोर्ट में पानी जमा होगा शहरों में फ्लड आएंगे तो दिस इज व्हाट इज हैपनिंग वो चीजें दोनों सुपर इम्पोज हो गई हैं ठीक है ना एक तो ग्लोबल वार्मिंग की वजह से जो बारिशों का ज्यादा होना अपनी जगह है इनमें हमारे सिस्टम का जो है वो इनके लिए नाकाफी होना जो है और जो हमारा डेवलपमेंट का आवर पैटर्न ऑफ डेवलपमेंट इज रिजल्टिंग इनटू impervious increased impervious global lands urban landscape impervious urban landscape वो बढ़ रहा है और ये सिर्फ पाकिस्तान की कहानी नहीं है you have seen आप में से जो लोग those who have visited these advanced countries of Europe and let's say Canada etc Australia that there is a tendency that in the urban cities not a drop of not a dust particle should be there so बहुत सारी जगहों पे टर्फिंग के अलावा या टर्फ एरिया था वहां से तो पानी सीपेज को छोड़ सकता है into the ground but which are not tough where there is paving टाइल्स के साथ या ब्रिक्स के साथ पेविंग किया वहां क्या होगा वहां पानी सारा का सारा फ्लो करेगा ठीक है ना the more urban development of impervious type you have the more flooding problem you have so that's why this urban flooding issue is a pronounced issue in the advanced countries too climate change का फैक्टर इसमें ड्रेनेज के साथ कंबाइन हो गया है अच्छा लैंडस्लाइड का जरा देखिए जो फ्लो डायग्राम है कि हैवी रेनफॉल मोर वाटर इन गैस in the ground, the slopes, in the sloping areas. So reduction in the effective stresses in the ground or increase in the total stresses. So that is increase in the pore water pressure and resulting into landslides. Of course, the effective shearing strength, which holds the soil against shearing, that reduces to a minimum, goes very low because of the water ingress and holding of pore water. इसी तरह जो floods हैं they cause undercutting, may cause undercutting and landslides. और इसी तरह एक और phenomenon landslide का with the deforestation. The floods and instability may result and again resulting in landslides. तो ये landslide का जो phenomenon है ये आप देखें कि बहुत सारे there's so many elements behind. Sometimes in addition we have soils which have different, chemistry, have specific minerals in the clay. They are called swelling minerals like Mount Magellonite in particular. So the soils have a tendency to gain volume or expand in volume upon addition of water. They are called swelling soil. In the same swelling soil, when water is reduced in them by some process, reduction of moisture causes swelling, the reverse phenomenon. So the same soil with the swelling, they behave as shrinking soil upon reduction in water. So of course, when excessive water will be there and you have pavements and roads and buildings, light buildings in particular, so what we are going to expect, you see, of course, damage, cracking, tilting, movement. And when there are low or no rainfall, on the other hand, there could be droughts. So that will result into shrinkage, so reduction in volume. So of course, any structure which is present on shrinking swelling soils and the phenomenon keep taking place with the climatic factors, such building structures or bridges or whatever we have or pavement will keep suffering losses unless some measures are taken, you see, beforehand. Collapsibility. Certain soils are having such a nature that their particles are present in a state of artificial equilibrium, temporary equilibrium, or quasi-equilibrium. They are held temporarily with some bonds at the particle contact points, like bond of clay itself between the particle, like the bond of salt, some salt, which can give way or which can dissolve upon addition of water. So what happens? They have void structures like words or honeycomb. When the bond get dissolved, or they're also called welds sometimes. When the welds give way, there is a sudden quick collapse or reduction in volume, hence collapsible. Very serious for structures. We cannot design structures to take care of sudden stresses because of the sudden collapse. पहले से देखना होगा कि हमारे कहाँ कहाँ ऐसे स्ट्रक्चर्स हैं जो नए स्ट्रक्चर जो प्लान किए गए हैं उनकी स्ट्रेटजी फॉर and the structures which are existing on such soils, how they can be saved from the climatic factors, the strategy of engineering will be different. So seismicity and liquefaction पे आ जाएं इसके साथ climate change के साथ. If there is more erosion of any type or if there is more water bodies or glacier melting, तो क्या होगा? Shifting of weights on the Earth planet, on the Earth planet, and consequently on different plates, tectonic plates. So different weights change in the weight, कहीं कम हो गया कहीं बढ़ गया जो natural equilibrium था, so that would result into change tectonic movements. वो जो उनका एक drifting pattern था वो बदल गया. So earthquakes फिर उस लिहाज से आएंगे, you see. और फिर जब earthquake आएंगे तो they may bring other factors, you see. The most prominent of them, in addition to the seismic shaking, is in a specific soil which can get liquefied and become like molasses or like fluid, liquefiable soil, a very serious condition. ये सारा जनाब climate change के साथ इसका link बन गया है. So if ozone depletion is there, on the one hand, there is going to be risk of pulmonary diseases, and the other hand, with more ultraviolet rays, cancers of various types of skin and brain, diseases on the living creatures, on humans, on animals. So this means the discussion that I've made so far that there are deep impacts of climate change which go in the form of chain reaction. Effect hote hote they boil down to our engineering works. हमारी उस पे आ जाते हैं, हमारी engineering पे आ जाते हैं. So the idea that sphere, but also elicits potentially hazardous responses, namely geohazard from the solid earth or geosphere. So this is the thing. ठीक है ना जी? आपका एक एटमॉस्फेयर है जैसे मैंने शुरू में कहा. One is the hydrosphere, water body, and geohazard. इस पे हम बहुत ज़्यादा concentrate कर रहे हैं on that. But I told in the beginning that geohazards are not only because of the climate change effects. There are other phenomena also. Like एक meteor अगर strike कर जाए जमीन के ऊपर किसी और planet से या किसी और sun से, ठीक है ना जी, बड़ा meteor planet या किसी और से आए and it strikes against our planet Earth, you see, that can result into an accident on the solid surface of Earth also. ठीक है ना जी, जहाँ habitation, that will also be a geohazard, a hazard which has taken place on the geosphere, but not because of the climate change effect. So geohazards को जब देखें वो एक अलग उनकी classification बन जाती है. Now, when we accept that we are going to have increased geohazards of increased frequency, of longer duration, of more catastrophic effect, higher risk, more vulnerability with climate change effects, and climate change effects को हम समझ रहे हैं now कि this is because of the anthropogenic reasons, उसी को investigate किया जा रहा है, कुदरती को नहीं किया जा रहा ज़्यादा. तो फिर हम how to build resilience or resistance against such hazards क्या करें? अब इसमें अगर हम देखें सबसे ज़्यादा paramount important चीज़ है, we have to safeguard the population of people. There are two classes of population, broadly speaking, worldwide. The rural population, unka budopaj, their way of living, their requirement, their style is different. They are more rough and tough. and the people who live in the urban environment, ठीक है ना, जिस तरह आप लोग हैं, हम लोग हैं, जैसे हम शहरों में ज़्यादा रह रहे हैं, तो शहरों में मसाइल, रेजिलियंस पैदा करने के तरीके अपने होंगे, रूरल एरियाज में अपने होंगे, ठीक है जी। रूरल एंड अर्बन डिवाइड communities have different resilience in their extreme events of climate change. So the strategies also are different for the mitigation of rural communities, of climate change in rural communities and in the urban communities. In the rural areas, it is mostly, you see, controlled by social parameters, that is by adaptation. उसके मुताबिक ढाल लें अपने आप को, ठीक है जी, जो सख्ती गर्मी आ रही है, reorganize कर लें, improving sustainability, you see, things like that. But resilience in urban population is governed mostly by economic parameters, economic development to avoid or recover from and withstand hazards. इनके लिए आपको पैसा खर्च करके वो चीज़ें उस तक की, जैसे मैंने अर्बन फ्लडिंग की बात की, ड्रेनेज सिस्टम आपको लिटरली इम्प्रूव करने हैं, ठीक है ना। Landslide कुछ areas में जहाँ urban dwellings हैं on a sloping ground, we have so many areas in the world and also in Pakistan. आप मरी को ले लो, कश्मीर आपका मरी को हाला up north. So we have dwellings on mountains, you see, on hills. तो वहाँ हमको पानी के रास्तों को, ड्रेनेज के इफेक्ट्स को ट्रेन करना होगा, और यहाँ हम समझते हैं कि यहाँ पानी ज़्यादा आना है, उसको हम कैसे बेहतर करेंगे, यू नो, हम वहाँ ट्रेनिंग करेंगे, ज़्यादा 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 रिवर प्रोटेक्शन वर्क्स करेंगे, यू नो। So there are so many things, but I want you to draw a contrast between mitigation and resilience. इसको दो अलग-अलग चीजें समझिए, okay? When I say mitigation of climate change effects, then it purely relates to the mitigation of the factors which are causing change in the climate because of the anthropogenic factors. कि हम एंथ्रोपोजेनिक फैक्टर्स की वजह से जो क्लाइमेट को चेंज कर रहे हैं, उन इफेक्ट्स को हम कैसे मिटिगेट करें, वो इफेक्ट्स कम हो जाए। आप समझे मेरा मतलब, कैसे, हाउ टू रिड्यूस एमिशंस ऑफ कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड, हाउ टू रिड्यूस द ग्लोबल ग्लोबल वार्मिंग इफेक्ट, हाउ टू रिड्यूस दिस ओजोन डिप्लीशन, थिंग्स लाइक दैट। ये आती हैं आपकी मिटिगेशन ऑफ द फैक्टर्स व्हिच कॉज क्लाइमेट चेंज। व्हेन आई टॉक ऑफ रेजिलियंस, तो वो चीजें कि हम एक हद तक मिटिगेट कर सकते हैं, बट उसके बाद जो क्लाइमेट चेंज के कुछ इफेक्ट होंगे, उसकी वजह से जो चेंजेस आएंगी, जो फ्लड्स आने की टेंडेंसी है, और देयर इज अ टेंडेंसी फॉर लैंडस्लाइडिंग, और देयर इज अ टेंडेंसी फॉर लैंड इरोजन, देयर इज अ टेंडेंसी फॉर ड्रॉट्स एंड इंक्रीज रेनफॉल, एंड यू नो, मोर वेट एरिया, द मोर ड्राई एरिया, उनके इफेक्ट को जब आप कंट्रोल करना चाहेंगे by your engineering intervention, or by using such things which are physically there, they will require money, lot of money, ठीक है जी। तो वो जो आपकी है रेजिलियंस का वो जो पैटर्न है, वो आपका इस तरह का होगा कि जो आपको शहरों में इस्तेमाल करना है, ठीक है ना। तो उसमें रूरल एरियाज में तो वो एडेप्टेशन के साथ चल जाएगा, कम खर्चे के साथ कुछ चीज़ें, कुछ सिस्टम बन जाएंगे, ठीक है ना। Worldwide, it is recognized, and in the climate changes, the government's responsibility to make more awareness among the people, among the organization, among the different bodies, different authorities. So, how we think that the risk, hazard risk, is increased, it's magnified by climate change. Hazard risk is magnified by climate change, yes, because the anthropogenic effects increase these risks. So it can increase the hazard vulnerability. जब risk बढ़ेगा तो उससे vulnerability भी बढ़ सकती है, वही नहीं लेकिन बढ़ सकती है, while at the same time decreasing the resilience of households and communities. ठीक है ना जी, उनका उसको बर्दाश्त करने का, उसको काबू करने का जो उनका पोटेंशियल है, वो आपने नहीं बढ़ाया, रेजिलियंस पैदा, रेजिस्टेंस पैदा नहीं की, but different means. So poor countries like ours, see, we are likely to suffer more. अच्छा, आप इसके मैं थोड़ा सा रोशनी डालूं, you can read on this slide that there are social impacts also. ठीक है ना, ये फिर मेडिकल की तो बात चली जाती है, क्लाइमेट चेंज के सिर्फ यही नहीं है कि हम प्रॉपर्टी और लॉस ऑफ लाइफ की बात कर रहे हैं, लॉस ऑफ फाइनेंशियल रिसोर्सेज एंड पर्सनल इंजरीज एंड इलनेसेस एंड डेथ्स ऑफ पीपल कैन आल्सो बी देयर। ये आपके जिससे आपका सोशल पैटर्न, जिससे with which people develop tensions and uh, they are mentally disturbed, you see, and they are physically disturbed because of these factors and the social factors which affect their day-to-day living. They tend to migrate sometimes. Migration of a household is not a small thing, you see. There's monetary loss, mental health issues could emanate, अल्कोहल, ये तो WHO में स्टडी हुआ, अल्कोहल मिसयूज इन इलाकों में बढ़ गया, डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस शुरू हो गए, chronic diseases, short-term unemployment, increase in poverty. A country like us and other poor nations or developing nations, they have to give heed to this thing. It's not really just कि climate change के बारिश ज़्यादा हो रही है जी और सैलाब ज़्यादा आ रहा है, उसके असरात देखिए ना. When you have to run a country, then you have to take a decision. और हमारा प्लानिंग कमीशन है और सारा प्लानिंग एंड डेवलपमेंट डिपार्टमेंट, ये चीज़ें देखनी पड़ती हैं गवर्नमेंट्स को, उनकी मिनिस्टर्स के हवाले से ये केसेस होते हैं. ऑफ कोर्स हमारा मकसद ये होगा कि हमारे अखराजात कम से कम लगे, हम इस तरह की पॉलिसीज बनाएं कि रेजिलियंस पैदा हो विद लीस्ट एक्सपेंसेस ड्यू टू द क्लाइमेट चेंज इफेक्ट. लेकिन कुछ ना कुछ हमें करना जरूर है, उसके बगैर तो हम नहीं चल सकते, अदरवाइज हमारा बहुत ज़्यादा नुकसान होगा. That was the social impact. Now have a look at the economic impacts. Reduce business activities. Import आपकी बढ़ जाएंगी, कुछ चीजें आपकी क्योंकि पैदा नहीं हो पाएंगी ना, आपके ड्रॉट्स भी आ गए, ठीक है, फर्ज की आपकी फसलें कम ही है, ठीक है जी, और आपकी इंडस्ट्री ने कम काम किया है, आपको वो चीजें बाहर से मंगानी पड़ेंगी, मीन मोर फॉरेन एक्सचेंज एक्सपेंडिचर. ये सारा क्लाइमेट चेंज का इफेक्ट होगा. Reduce agricultural yield, reduce manufacturing and services and resulting into reduced exports. आपका foreign exchange कम हो गया. Reduce fisheries and livestock. Of course, in the water bodies when we are getting disturbance, temperature की उतार चढ़ाव ज़्यादा होने लगेंगे तो उनमें फिशरीज हैं, जो वाटर एनिमल्स हैं वो मरना भी शुरू हो जाएंगे. Income inequality will increase. At country level, the GDP, gross domestic produce, will reduce. Impact on water resources and water scarcity, like we are suffering from scarcity of water resources. बिजली की प्रोडक्शन अपनी जगह, our water reservoirs are only very few in number. Our storage capacity is low vis-a-vis the country's requirement for crops and agriculture. बाहर से हमें गंदम मंगानी पड़ती है, कितनी मुसीबत है ना, ये और बढ़ जाएगा. So more expenditure or money would be required on the reconstruction work. Can we afford this so much? And this all would result on in price hike. We are already dependent on generation of electricity to a big extent on the imported fuel जो बाहर से आता है. हाइड्रो प्रोजेक्ट भी कम है, वाटर रिसोर्सेज के हमारे जो प्रोजेक्ट हैं वो भी थोड़े हैं अभी तक. तो प्राइस हाइक ये है जनाब क्लाइमेट चेंज. ये मुसीबत है, अल्लाह ने बड़ा बैलेंस पैदा किया हुआ था. अब देखिए थोड़ा सा स्लाइड बता दी, क्लाइमेट चेंज एंड डिजास्टर साइकिल को सिर्फ एक्सप्लेन किया. दैट ऑन द लेफ्ट हैंड यू सी क्लाइमेट में नेचुरल वेरिएबिलिटीज इज देयर एंड एंथ्रोपोजेनिक क्लाइमेट वेरिएबिलिटीज देयर. उधर ये तो होना ही होना है. एंथ्रोपोजेनिक आप कंट्रोल कर सकते हैं किसी हद तक. फिर डेवलपमेंट जो हो रही है, डिजास्टर रिस्क मैनेजमेंट करना, उसमें क्लाइमेट चेंज अडेप्टेशन करते हैं. तो दिस डिजास्टर रिस्क में तीन चीजें दरमियान में यू कैन सी इट्स लाइक अ फ्लावर थ्री पैटर्न, वल्नरेबिलिटी, एक्सपोजर एंड वेदर एंड क्लाइमेट इवेंट्स. ये जो हैजर्ड की बात की थी ना, वो मैंने पहले भी बताया था, इसको पिक्टोरियल शेप में बताया गया है कि डेवलपमेंट होगी, ग्रीन हाउस गैसेज विल बी एमिटेड, वो होंगे, ग्लोबल वार्मिंग होगी, कहानी में से शुरू होती है, एंड देन यू सी आपका डिजास्टर की तरफ बात जाएगी. ठीक है जी. तो उसमें तीन फैक्टर्स हैं कि वल्नरेबिलिटी, कितने वल्नरेबल होंगे उसके रिस्क में, एक्सपोजर कितना लंबे अरसे के लिए होगा, वो सैलाब आएगा कितने लंबे अरसे के लिए आएगा, ठीक है जी, वेदर एंड क्लाइमेट इवेंट्स, कौन कौन से खतरनाक इवेंट्स होंगे. यू सी दिस इज अ साइकिल. क्लाइमेट चेंज दो तरह की, एंड डिजास्टर साइकिल, इसमें आप उसकी मैनेजमेंट की तरफ फिर आ जाते हैं कि आप क्या करें, क्लाइमेट चेंज अडेप्टेशन करें, डिजास्टर रिस्क मैनेजमेंट करें। अच्छा, अब इंटरेस्टिंगली आई गिव यू general categorization of hazards. It has been told to be of two types: the quick one, the sudden one, and the slow ones. Sudden ones in the category of sudden hazards, which give less warning time, are earthquakes, but less warning or even no warning. Landslides, earthquakes, and floods. ये sudden की category है. And the ones which fall in the slow hazard category, which we get some prior information also about: droughts, coastal erosion, because we would know that sea water is gradually rising, तो ये हो जाना है अगले 2-4 साल में. Poor air quality, yes. Slowly creeping slides, as is the case in many parts of northern Pakistan, particularly Murray and Kohala. These soft rocks and wet clay deposits you see, which form the hillocks in Murray and Kohala area, they are slowly creeping slides present at a very steep angle. Technically, we geotechnical engineers call them quasi-stable areas. You see, if a slope is standing apparently stable at an angle of 60 or 70 degrees, it is not perfectly stable. It is stable temporarily because of the vegetation effect, you can say, at the most, or because of some intervening geological factor like outcropping of some stronger rock bed like sandstone in the shale bed. You see, we call such deposits as quasi-stable, that they're just at the brink of sliding. You see, for instance, in civil engineering, a factor of safety of 1.5 is generally assigned for the case of static equilibrium against sliding. And if such a slope is present at the factor of say 1.1 or 1.05 or 1.15, we will call this quasi-stable. Low factor of safety, which increases the risk of sliding. तो ये जनाब है, जब इनमें थोड़ा सा क्लाइमेट चेंज का फैक्टर आएगा, दे आर ऑलरेडी एट लो factor of safety at standing. Even a small climate change effect will play havoc with their stability. अच्छा, अब मैं आपको दिखाना चाहता हूँ कि United Nations International Strategy for Disaster Reduction, UNISDR 2009, has given a list of major disasters. You see, ये जो इन्होंने दी है वो मैंने एक्सेक्टली वो आपको बताई है, ये ग्लोबल फोरम्स पे भी डिस्कस होती है. मेजर की कैटेगरी में रखे गए हैं because of the climate changes, decreasing agricultural yields in warmer environments due to heat stress. This is very serious. How we will feed the people? अगर उन्हें खाना नहीं मिलेगा, जानवरों को खुराक नहीं मिलेगी, तो मर जाएंगे ना. So that, or they will be malnutrition. Very serious. Human generation जो है उसका क्या बनेगा? सेकंड उन्होंने लिस्ट किया है यूएनआईएसडीआर ने, राइजिंग सी लेवल्स इज अ बिग डेंजर. जैसे कुछ सालों से अब ये इंक्रीज ये कहा जा रहा है, वेनिस द सिटी, फेमस हिस्टोरिक सिटी ऑफ इटली, वेनिस इन पेरिल, इन डेंजर. I was there too in 2007, and at that time the sea level was low. But the 2 years or 1 year or 2 years after, you see, the whole area of Venice, the lower part was under sea, several feet of seawater, and this keeps happening. I was told sometimes. It's very dangerous, you see, for the people living there and for the inhabitations and businesses there. So, third, they say, is more severe and frequent extreme precipitation event. More severe, I mean, which has higher vulnerability and frequent. इसमें एक्सपोजर टाइम्स जो बार बार आएंगे जल्दी जल्दी, बजाय के 10 साल बाद आए और 20 साल बाद, साल बाद, 2 साल बाद, और एक्सपोजर टाइम उनका ज्यादा होगा. चेंजेस इन द जियोग्राफिक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ वेदर रिलेटेड हैजर्ड्स, उनकी जो लोकेशन है वो बदल जाएगी. जहाँ ज्यादा गर्मी पड़ती थी वहाँ कम गर्मी हो जाएगी, जहाँ ज्यादा सर्दी है वहाँ कम सर्दी, जहाँ नहीं होती थी खास सर्दियों में बहुत ज्यादा ठंड शुरू, you see उल्टा. So this is the implication of the, because the nature will tend to restore a new equilibrium under the anthropogenic changes which we are doing with the whole population of the world, which is in billions and billions of people. We, I think something like 7 or 8 billion people on this planet, decreasing resilience and increasing poverty. जाहिर है एक लिमिट है, and particularly of the developing nations, the resilience already is too low. उनको ज्यादा फर्क पड़ेगा, फिर पॉवर्टी भी वहाँ ज्यादा बढ़ेगी. वेरी सीरियस implications इसकी आप देखें. So types of geohazard induced by climate, हमने सारी बात कर ली, एक मैंने लिस्ट वैसे बना दी दोबारा. Earthquake, floods, erosion, tsunamis, hurricanes, droughts, landslides, liquefaction, swelling, contraction, collapse. I've not included here intentionally those geohazards which are not related to climate change. One example I quoted was of that of you see that meteorite, uh, falling of a meteorite, meteoritic crash of the. Now please have a look over this some interesting slides. The figure shows you snow cover in the Arctic region, and you can see puncturing of it, you see, by melting. A melting Arctic and weird weather, droughts, cold, snowstorm, heat waves, and precipitation have happened before. Yes, this has been happening historically. If you go into the history of the Earth, you see the history of Earth is too old. The Earth is said to be 4.5 billion years old, you see, according to radio dating by scientists. 4.5 अरब साल के करीब इसको कहा जा रहा है. तो ये जब से बनी है इसमें चेंजेस हो रही हैं अपने आप नेचुरल पैटर्न के मुताबिक, ये नहीं कि नहीं हुई है, बट द परसिस्टेंस, इंटेंसिटी एंड फ्रीक्वेंसी, यानी उनका ज्यादा देर के लिए होना, उनका ज्यादा इंटेंस होना, एंड बार बार थोड़े वक्फे पे होना. फ्रीक्वेंसी ऑफ दिस पैटर्न इज स्टार्टिंग टू रेज आईब्रोज, एंड द रेजिंग ऑफ आईब्रोज इज डायरेक्टली लिंक्ड टू द एंथ्रोपोजेनिक इफेक्ट्स. कुदरती से नहीं था. आबादी बढ़ती जाएगी, टेक्नोलॉजी की इंटरवेंशन होती जाएगी, तो अनलेस साथ साथ प्रॉपर मेजर्स इफेक्टिव तरीके से लिए गए तो ये काम खराब होता जाएगा. अगर केयर न की गई, then this planet Earth may become unlivable for the living beings, including humans and animals, and even plants. Global warming versus geohazards global warming can enhance local extreme weather conditions, which in turn can affect the frequency of geohazards, such as landslides and avalanches and floods. ये देखिए, in UK, I forget the year, but volcanic eruption under the glacier in Iceland. Flights had to be cancelled in UK. आप ये देखिए, you can see an eruption under the glacier. So what kind of environmental effect it is having, you see, on the atmosphere as well as on the geosphere and as well as on the hydrosphere. है ना, पानी की बॉडी में क्या असर होगा, एवलांच जो जनरेट होंगे इससे, उससे क्या होगा, और जो हवा में पोल्यूशन गई, तो ये सी. और ये क्यों वॉल्केनिक eruption, क्या ये नेचुरल है सारा, और this volcanic eruption is because of some imbalance of forces of वगैरह वगैरह. In Ireland, this kind of sphere shrinkage cracks were observed, you see, in certain areas. अब अगर आप क्या करेंगे, वहाँ आबादियाँ कैसे बनाएंगे. On October 28, 2012, a Hurricane Sandy was observed by NASA observatory, you see. You can see in the middle, you see a hurricane winding kind of pattern, you see, of winds. तो इससे क्या हुआ? It had, you see, effect on the parts of New Jersey shoreline. On the left-hand side in the figure, you see the New Jersey shoreline before the event of this hurricane, and on the right side after happening of the hurricane Sandy. When it hit, you see the seashore, you can see a lot of erosion, water intrusion, and you see flooding of not many areas and population gone and a lot of damage to the houses. You can see yourself. तो ये जो इफेक्ट्स हैं, ये बढ़ते जाने की जो मैंने अभी बात की है ना, ये कि this is very important message, this one. But these have been happening in the past too, but now their persistence, intensity, and frequency of this pattern is starting to raise eyebrows because of the anthropogenic effects. ठीक है जी, तो आगे देखिए हमारे साथ क्या हुआ. In August 2009 in Pakistan, we had the worst flood of the century in this country. You see, in 2010. In the upper figure, August 18, 2009 आप देखें तो जैकबाबाद सखर का जो एरिया है, you can see in between river Indus meandering, you can see it very well. But in the lower figure, and year after, in 2000, August 2010, you can see a lot of area damaged by flood, intervene, intervention of water, you see, increase in the floodplain area, and you see, of course, uh, uh, there were crops and population, and there was a lot of disturbance on the Indus banks in the larger region. This is called Jacobabad, as a Sakhar flood of 2010. As documented, it is documented here in the literature that very strong monsoon rains caused the Indus River to spate and inundate large areas on both the banks. So it affected about 15 to 20 million people. This is amazing for me also when I read this thing, causing the worst flooding in a century. This extreme event caused significant damage, in particular to the agriculture sector, as more than 6 million hectares of agri area was underwater. So what are the implications now? Less agricultural crop, less livelihood, people without jobs, people without money, government to spend a lot of money on restoration works, and you see this has a lot of effect on the economy of the country, right? So we have to try in our domain as a nation, you see, और engineers के तौर पे हम इसको इस्तेमाल भी करें, फैलाएं भी, कि हम क्या करें, लोगों को किस तरह से तरगीब दें, अपने क्लाइंट को भी बताएं, अपने जो उनके साथ आप डील करते हैं, इसको प्रॉपरली जो है ना वो हम अपने प्रोजेक्ट में इसका ख्याल रखें, कि हम पहले से एडवांस इस तरह की तबाहियाँ उनसे जो हम कर सकते हैं, ठीक है ना जी. एकदम तो हम कुछ नहीं कर सकते, लेकिन हमारी जो कंट्रीब्यूशन है इन कीपिंग आवर पार्ट ऑफ द कंट्री ग्रीनर विद मोर कार्बन सिंक एरियाज, विद लेस हीट जनरेशन वगैरह वगैरह, वो हमारा रोल अदा करते जाएं. वी आर आल्सो अ पार्ट ऑफ द ग्लोबल ट्रीटी, वी आर बाउंड टू डू दैट. इससे ये भी होता है कि when there are persistent periods of droughts for long time, there are wildfires, you see. Although they are because of some other reasons also, because of excessive heat and because of lightning effects, and because of other human related effects in the people set sometime the jungle to fire, you see. Anyway, ये बहरहाल एक 2010 ही में long and intense dry weather में ये बहुत ज़्यादा fire हुआ है. It has a lot of impact on the climate too. So जैसे मैंने वो I showed you a picture in which there was a volcanic eruption under the snow cover. So of course avalanche will generate in that condition in the mountain. So this slide shows to you, as I've been emphasizing, excessive Arctic warming. Excessive warming जो है, this is only very few degrees centigrade rise. ये नहीं कि वहाँ पे boiling water conditions हो गई है, यही काफी है. तो आप स्केल पे देखें तो आपको नजर आएगा नीचे हीट स्केल के खासा हॉटर एरिया ऊपर बना है, जिसमें आर्कटिक वार्मिंग हुई है, वेदर शिफ्ट हुआ है. So this is going to cause snow melts and send more water into rivers and to change tectonic disturbances. We must understand this, और हमें इसको देखना है कि हम इसको जितना कंट्रोल कर सकते हैं, and what we at the planning level, at the technical level can do for mitigation. There's a town in UK called Reading. You see, Beautiful houses, developed countries, and you see they're riding boat also perhaps. On the left side, you see a boat. Yeah. So flood, urban flood, excessive rainfall, excessive flooding, and the drainage not able to cater for that in the impervious urban landscape. मैंने आपको बताया ये सारी दुनिया में यूएसए में भी certain parts में urban flooding के phenomenon हुए हैं. Extreme weather conditions in New Jersey, lot of snowfall, tidal action because of climate change near the US coast, big waves, of course, they will do the damage of their own kind, earthquake damages, and we are aware of the earthquake damages which is taking place in our country too. But we don't want additional earthquake damages because of the anthropogenic effect. The whole world has to join hands, and they are trying to join hands. Mount St. Helens eruption in Washington, big eruption, big fumes of smoke going into air. Damages due to liquefaction are horrendous, are very serious. This is a damage to some building apartment projects in Japan, in Niigata city. You can see total collapse or a lot of tilting, you see, because of loss of strength in the ground because of earthquake shaking. Here you see rainforests of Amazon. Living faster, I mean, growing faster and dying younger trees with less absorption of carbon dioxide. This is the new generation of trees which has been found to be there in Amazon. You see, this is how, you see, we human beings, you and me, our colleagues and animals, we are also getting some slow effect of this climate change, which we don't even feel, you see. लेकिन इन ट्रीज में ये इफेक्ट आ गया. They started growing fast and dying at an early age. I mean, इनका लाइफ स्पैन इंक्रीज का कम हो गया, जल्दी उगते थे, and with less absorption capacity of carbon dioxide. Very serious. इस तरह के दरख्त उगने शुरू हो गए, you see, जो उनको माहौल मिला उसके मुताबिक. ये बहुत ही सीरियस इफेक्ट है. हम तो चाह रहे हैं कि ज्यादा कार्बन एब्जॉर्ब करे, ग्रीनरी जो है उनकी उम्रें ज्यादा हों, and they should not, I mean, ठीक है, growing faster is something, but they should not die young. So according to statistics, crop yields to drop by 25% by end of this 21st century. आपकी गालबन इनका ख्याल है कि जो मैयर्स हम ले भी लेंगे, क्रॉप यील्ड 25% कम हो जाएगी. ज्यादा एरियाज दे विल बी इरिगेटिंग एंड पुटिंग एग्रीकल्चर इन मोर एरियाज, लेकिन वो एक होता है ना आपका, एक जो एरियाज इरिगेट होने वाले हैं उनमें यील्ड 25% कम हो जाएगी. There's a good news regarding ozone, that in 1989 there was a Montreal Protocol, Montreal Pact, in which it was understood that ozone layer is depleting at a very quick rate. So you see two images of globe. On the left hand side there is a blue color, you see a smudging of blue color. So that indicates on the left Arctic zone without the Montreal Protocol, you see, and on the right following its implementation. तो ओजोन लेयर की थिकनेस लेफ्ट साइड पे यू सी, आप स्केल पे देखें तो कम रह गई थी, एंड it started increasing again after implementation of the Montreal Protocol. I think the advanced countries had a big play to role in a big play, big role to play basically. You see, to control the outflow of the chlorofluorocarbons and other emissions which deplete the ozone through their industry, through their factories, through their jets. So protection of ozone layer and control of the spread of skin cancer. This has been an achievement. So it is said now, the scientists tell us that the ozone layer has been rebuilt, which is a very good sign. In Sri Lanka area, NASA recorded a tropical cyclone. You can see the map of Sri Lanka here. You see part of India also, but Sri Lanka is seriously affected. Because Sri Lanka has seen all the sides. Back in 2014, there has been flash floods in Makkah, but there have been flash floods in early, I think 30s also, 20s or 30s. I was reading the history in Makkah when Khana Kaaba was inundated. So these kind of changes. In Pittsburgh 2019, a sinkhole, big sinkhole developed all of a sudden and the bus which was traveling that fell into it. So this means that there was loss of underground support by slow migration of soil, you see, under the influence of some seeping water. Why did this happen? Why so much seepage took place which carried away the soil particle with it, creating some big hole or cavity, you see, is said to be related to kind of climate change effects too. So similarly, swelling and shrinking soils have given some indication earlier. They do have their effect, and in Canada and Saskatchewan area, irregular weather patterns due to climate change affect soil moisture and adversely impact pipelines and roads and other utilities, you see, which exist underground. Large sinkhole you can see downtown of Ottawa, 2016. This is horrible in looks, you see. A lot of material has moved away because of certain process taking place underneath. Had this happened under the big tall structures, then what would have happened? You see, total destruction. This is the view of the road only, you see. And you see under the railroad track, there is loss of support. The ground has moved. Embankment has collapsed because of probably washing with flood, and there has, of course, there will be train derailment. Yeah, it is taking place. You can see in the figure, you see, this is disjointing in 2013. So I think I've been able to drive my point home that this seismic activity or tectonic activity is also driven and can also be driven or mobilized by climate change. We must keep this thing in mind. And the pattern of earthquakes, you see, which was happening because of other reasons, is now changeable, you see, with this pattern. So we have had enough discussion on geohazard. So I can say that in addition to this classical geohazards, meteorite impacts and, and the health hazards of geological materials, ये सारे भी geohazards में आ जाते हैं, ठीक है जी? Where the range of, I mean, hazards which the humankind is beset today. So some recent examples include wildfires followed by rainfall and associated mudslides in California, as well as intense rainfall with associated flooding leading to roadway washouts in Texas, Virginia, and Maryland. Don't consider that these are happening only in Europe or USA and we are not going to have anything. Our reports, our areas are not, our incidents are not that, I mean, properly documented. Some effects are, bad effects are taking place, you see, in an erratic manner, in a spread out manner. There's no doubt, and they will affect the whole globe. Because the temperature change is not affected by the geographic boundaries. If something is being done seriously by India for a long time or by Afghanistan, it's going to affect Pakistan too. There's no way that we are not affected. So this planet has two extreme conditions, so to say. Either extreme drought condition और extreme wet condition, या तो बिल्कुल ही खुश्क कुछ इससे और कुछ बहुत ही ज्यादा पानी. ये दो जो चीजें हैं, they are the contrasting things and both have their own unique, you see, implications. जो हिस्सा ड्राई है पहले, उसमें जब पानी आएगा तो उसके जो potential है to absorb water that will be more. So that will bring more landslide जो ड्राई था पहले. ठीक है ना, जो पहले वेट था और फिर मजीद वेट हो गया, वो भी कुछ पोटेंशियल रखेगा, लेकिन आप देखें ना ये we have to look with the logic. Landslides will have a direct link with the global warming, rockfalls and everything in the inhabitation which are in the mountain region. So as I told you, melting glaciers and rising sea levels shift the distribution of huge amounts of water, which means load, so which release and increase pressures through the ground, right? जो प्रेशर या लोड का शिफ्ट होना है ये टेक्टोनिक मूवमेंट में कमी या बेशी कर देता है. These pressure changes could make ruptures and seismic shifts more likely. So storms and other things you see. So impact of climate change is now really clearly understood. Impact of rising temperatures or events such as earthquakes and volcanoes, as well as release of gas from undersea deposits called gas hydrates, which could trigger landslides and tsunami, is now being understood. We human beings, we poor creatures, we don't understand even fully, even till now, our own planet Earth. What to talk of knowing so much about the universe and our galaxies and other things with the planets and stars are present at distances of millions of light years apart. हमारा नॉलेज तो बड़ा जनाब शैलो है. अल्लाह ताला ने जितनी अहमियत दी है हम उसके मुताबिक अभी कर रहे हैं, तो नई नई चीजें सामने आ रही हैं. अंडर सी डिपॉजिट set which can set tsunamis and big tides, which can bring tabahi to this world and a big challenge to civil engineers. So in 1950 observations उस वक्त से हो रही है, मैंने पहले भी बताया. So growing frequency of heat waves and rising winds and growing droughts are already being witnessed. So heavy precipitation events are triggering floods and landslides. This is understood. So with this, in 2012, a world map was prepared in Germany by an institute, you see, in Munich. So here you see some salient, you see, uh, what have happened, you see, which have happened, which have been plotted, you see. अब देखते हैं, you can see that in the region of Pakistan also here, ये floods का report किया गया है. Afghanistan, which is surrounding to us, इसमें cold wave का, yeah, there are several other small intensities. The size of the circle or the dot is according to the vulnerability scale. इसका कितना मैग्नीट्यूड होगा. Natural catastrophes के तो ये दिखाया था. ये I told you in the beginning that in UK a study was carried out. The effect of the temperature increase on the cumulative probability of geohazards. So आप देख percent, a 2.3 degrees centigrade of rise increases the geohazard probability by 50%, and 3.2 degrees centigrade rise increases the probability by 90%. So this is, you see, England के system में ये study किया गया, and we can derive some inference from this also. So things are serious. कुछ काम इसमें हुआ है. Some future floods have been forecasted. You can see here. Thanks to Allah that Pakistan here, you see, we are safe here, but there's a lot of forecasting, you see. The coastal regions of the flooding, you see, in future. बहुत सारे इलाकों में जो पैटर्न है इसकी बेसिस पे कंप्यूटर मॉडल्स को बना के इसको स्टडी करके देखा गया है. जैसे श्रीलंका में 4 लैंडस्लाइड एरियाज ABCD, लगता है कि the whole Sri has landslide. In UK another study was made which is very logical. But what is the relationship between rainfall and landslides, right? So this is applicable to our country also, and I think our some research bodies should be able to carry out study here also. Here you look only at the dashed line, which is the accumulative average monthly rainfall, and the dotted line, accumulative average monthly landslide. So you see where this dashed line, that is the average rainfall, is high, the landslide activity is pronounced, and where it is low, the landslide activity is low. So this is how the rainfall water and the occurrence of landslide, erosion of the banks under resulting landslide. So they are introduced by using long tieback anchors in the reservoir rim. Otherwise, you can see what kind of uh, damage was expected there. So the recent marked increase in cyclone activities. तो इसमें हम अपने आप को निकाल नहीं सकते. ये यूनाइटेड नेशंस इंटरनेशनल स्ट्रेटजी फॉर डिजास्टर रिडक्शन जो अगेन इट वांट्स, they have just mentioned these 6 words, 1 2 3 4 5. The worst is yet to come. इससे आप देखिए, this is in the double quotes, exactly this is the warning. The worst is yet to come. कहते कोई शक नहीं क्यों है. बहुत quickly मैं थोड़ा सा mitigation पे बात करता हूँ, because I think we are completing close to our. I'll take a couple of minutes before I close. As I told you, mitigation is the effect of mitigation of the climatic factors by taking different measures, which are covered in this lecture. And mitigation of the geohazards. जब वो हो जाए तो उसके बाद जो करना है वो आपके resilience building और adaptation में आते हैं, by taking civil engineering measures in general. मैं आपको थोड़ा आगे ले जाता हूँ ताकि आपको मैं काम की चीजें दिखाऊं. हाँ, Climate Change Performance Index 2020, worst and best. Greener areas are where the climate change performance अच्छी रही है. I don't know why the data in the study for Pakistan was not available, but I have other diagrams to show climate survivability map. Yani once you find out that the impact of the geohazards, the damages which are going to take place, the risk factors which are high, they are indicated more with the reddish color. तो आप देख लें कि पाकिस्तान मेरा ख्याल है सेकंड कैटेगरी में आता है, and India has slightly less risks. You see, ये इस तरह करके हमारा green areas are there in the least risk, but in this map you see what is our contribution. Our contribution in the carbon low. ये देखें, Pakistan shows blue. India also shows blue to gray. You see, we're in essentially in low emission countries, but the question comes of our vulnerability. Damage कितने हो सकते हैं? Then we are, you see, in pink because we are poor. Had we not poor, had we been rich like this Europe and this part of China and you see Russia and the United States, तो हमारा ये blue tinge होता, ठीक है ना जी? So this means in a summary, in a summed up way, that we are contributing minimum, but we are going to be affected to a maximum because we are poor. So Pakistan's contribution to greenhouse gases is only 0.8% vis-a-vis our population, which is 2.8% of the globe. हम दुनिया में जो गंद प्रोड्यूस हो रहा है एटमॉस्फेयर में, उसमें 0.8% हिस्सेदार हैं, हालांकि हमारी पॉपुलेशन 2.8% दैट ऑफ ग्लोब. सो इसका मतलब हमारी कंट्रीब्यूशन इज लो and our vulnerability, you see, as I told you, is high. Pakistan's vulnerability to hazards of all types is very high due to poor economy. A 1 to 2 degree centigrade rise in temperature is likely to cause extinction to vegetation and life to the tune of 20 to 30%. जनाब, तो serious. मैं आपको इसमें बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं दिखाऊंगा. हाँ, ये look at this figure. Mitigation and adaptation में basic difference देखिए. When we talk of mitigation of the factors which lead to climate change, so sustainable transport, इस्तेमाल की जाए अगर, ठीक है, यानी कि इलेक्ट्रिक कार्स विच आर द फ्यूचर, क्लीन एनर्जी यू सी, विंड का दिखाया गया है, एनर्जी एफिशिएंसी, वेस्टेजेस कम हो उसमें, ठीक है जी, ग्रीन एनर्जी उसको कहते हैं। और फिर दूसरा है मिटिगेशन एडेप्टेशन, कि जो हो रहा है उसको आप क्या करेंगे, डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट, फ्लड प्रोटेक्शन मेजर्स में डिफरेंट मीन, जिसमें आपकी सिविल इंजीनियरिंग भी आ जाती है एंड दूसरे मेजर्स भी आ जाते हैं। चेक डैम्स भी आप बनाएंगे, आप फ्लड प्रोटेक्शन वर्क्स भी करेंगे, आप रिटेनिंग वॉल भी बनाएंगे, infrastructure upgrades. Infrastructure may everything which is below the ground that comes. That was the old definition of infrastructure in engineering. But the new definition of infrastructure in engineering is all the things which are required for the development of civilization. They are the infrastructure. Even airports, even आपके basic जो सारे units हैं जो कि आपकी basic necessities of life को cover करते हैं, they are infrastructure. Because in the old definition, this used to be pipeline and the buried foundations only below the ground. अब वो सारा कुछ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में आ जाता है जो कि सिविलाइजेशन को दरकार है एक मिनिमम लेवल सस्टेनेबिलिटी का देने के लिए. Just very quickly, I want to show you that there has been the concept of and a good experimentation of cloud seeding, in which silver iodide, whether from a plane or from a ground source, is sprayed on the clouds, called cloud seeding, and this results into making heavy, water drops, which are then frozen in colder environment, and you see, they may fall as ice crystal or as rain. तो ये एक कॉन्सेप्ट है ड्राउट एरिया में करने का, वेट करने का एंड क्रॉप्स ग्रो करने का. In Pakistan, we are signatory to many world forums. We have to be if we have to survive in this world. So हमारा status जैसे मैंने कहा of carbon dioxide emission is very low. We need to understand that climate change is going to affect our every area of human and economic development and social sectors also. So both government and individuals have to play a role. All engineers, architects and planners have a role to play and to understand that how they will design their project, greener projects, clean energy, no net carbon buildings, ऐसे की चीजें आ रही हैं, no net energy structures वगैरह वगैरह सारी चीजें. Government of Pakistan ने क्या किया है, कोई मिनिस्ट्री बना दिया है of climate change, and then they have a forum, Climate Control Council of Pakistan, which is chaired by the Prime Minister, and a few other ministers sit in that council. And under that council is the Climate Change Authority, PCCA, to monitor the regulations, at national level and the international regulations. ठीक है जी, ये है जनाब मेरा मैसेज क्लाइमेट चेंज का. I think I've been able to hammer the message of climate change into the minds of the engineers and architects and other professionals quite effectively. एक तो ये है, दूसरा मैं आपको जनरल मैसेज एक देना चाहता हूँ. I am a routine consistent speaker at this forum. We organize such events for you professionals with a lot of effort. Can you imagine this 2 hours of delivery? I'm also a busy person. I do this work to disseminate knowledge. The preparation of this must have taken me 5 to 6 weeks at least, of a lot of study, work on the PowerPoint, and my own analysis, discussion with experts, reading books and papers and preparing this. So you, in reciprocal terms, you should also show your interest, you see, of attending such thing without boredom, with interest, you see, with your mind. This small session not only bear the CPD points as required by PEC, but are required for your professional development. We require professional development of the professions in NASPAR. So we want you to join these in big number with interest. इस चीज को ध्यान में रखें कि आपकी प्रोफेशनल ग्रूमिंग का हिस्सा है जो आपके मुफ्त आपके एम्प्लॉयमेंट में आपको ट्रेनिंग मिल रही होती है. योर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इज प्रोवाइडिंग दिस फोरम टू यू. जी मेरा ख्याल आई एंड विद दिस Sarika.
Sir, thank you so much
thank all of you. If there's some question, I'm here. Yeah, please.
So I think people have already got the points over the comprehensive and the detailed session given by you, delivered by you, and definitely must have been a wisdom knowledge for the people as well who have heard the session and who have understood the kinds of the climate conditions and the geohazards thoroughly and with the research work that's been explained by you. And thank you once again for the kind message, sir, as well. We had been encouraging our participants to join these webinars, to get connected with these sessions, as it includes a lot of hard work of our distinguished trainers, be it from NESPARC or outside, because they're truly amazing in their expertise, and we already have witnessed this. We already are fully aware of the things Sir Sohail Kibria have been sharing with us so far, because he definitely has been one of the finer pillar stones we have in NESPARC, and he has been giving a lot of knowledge on various topics. You talk of geotechnical, you talk of other investigations, you talk of other feasibility and calculations. He is a masterpiece we have. So I encourage the participants from NESPARC and the outsiders as well to please keep attending these webinars, stay in touch with our Human Resources Division NESPARC for the queries and for the slides. We'll be there to facilitate you. And if anybody of you interested sharing the slides, to email, just drop your email with me, and I'll be there to coordinate, and I'll be letting you know with the slide details and everything. Sir, thank you so much. We'll be definitely being correspondence with you after some time, inshallah, for another interesting and informative webinar. And thank you, sir.
I'm waiting for the day when this Corona hit, Zoom webinars they end and we start the physical webinars. They are more interesting for the speaker as well as for the participant. That day will come soon, inshallah.
Definitely. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. And Allah Hafiz from our side.
Allah Hafiz. Thanks a lot.